Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're jumping straight into a foundational biblical truth that, honestly, has been hiding in plain sight for centuries. Today, we're looking at something incredibly profound, incredibly ancient, and absolutely crucial to your faith right now. We're talking about the Shema. It's just one single word, but it literally carries the weight of the entire biblical narrative, anchoring the faith of millions over millennia. Through our deep dive today, we're going to visually unpack what this ancient Hebrew concept means, how it shaped biblical history, and why it completely transforms the way we understand our relationship with God.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a pretty high-stakes question. If you were to ask a modern believer today, hey, what is the most important commandment in the Bible? You'd probably get a whole bunch of different answers, right? Some might point to the Golden Rule, others might summarize the Ten Commandments, or maybe they'd just point straight to John 3:16. But when Jesus of Nazareth was asked this exact same question by the religious scholars of his day, what is the first, the greatest, the absolute most important commandment of all? He didn't even hesitate. He gave a very specific, undeniable answer. And to really grasp his answer, we have to understand the language and the culture he was speaking from.
So let's look at the actual depth of the Hebrew language here. In our modern English, hearing is pretty passive. You hear the rain on the roof, you hear traffic in the distance, but the Hebrew word Shema means something entirely different. It means to hear, yes, but it fundamentally denotes hearing and actively obeying. In the ancient Hebrew mindset, if you didn't act on what you heard, well, you didn't truly Shema, you didn't truly listen. It's an action word. It literally demands a response. When you Shema, you're actively aligning your life with the words that are entering your ears.
Now let's look at where this word famously appears. Deuteronomy 6:4. In standard English translations, it usually reads, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." But check out the original focus in the Hebrew text. It gives us a much more intimate, powerful meaning. Hear Israel, Yahweh is our Elohim, Yahweh is one. Here's the key detail. Whenever you see the word Lord in all capital letters in the Old Testament, it represents the personal, sacred name of God. Simply say Yahweh. So the Shema isn't just a generic statement about some generic deity. It is a passionate, specific declaration of loyalty to Yahweh alone.
Because of this immense significance, the Shema became the central, anchoring prayer of all believing Jews. And this isn't just a piece of theology for academics. This is literally the rhythm of daily life. It's one of the very first portions of Scripture that a Jewish child memorizes. Traditionally, it's recited at least twice every single day, once in the morning when you rise and once in the evening before you go to sleep. It bookends the day, ensuring that the believer's first and last conscious thoughts are totally dedicated to actively hearing and obeying Yahweh.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the Shema moves from just a thought in your mind into physical reality. Let's look at the ancient and truly beautiful tradition of the mezuzah. Deuteronomy chapter 6 commands believers to write these words on the doorposts of their houses. Well, for thousands of years, this has been taken quite literally. Believers write the Shema onto a tiny, meticulously crafted scroll. That scroll is safely tucked inside a decorative case called a mezuzah, which is then affixed right to the threshold of the home. So every time you leave your house to enter the world, and every time you return to the safety of your home, you're physically reminded to Shema, to hear and obey Yahweh.
And the instruction builds from there. The Shema isn't just limited to that single declaration in verse 4. It immediately expands into verses 5 through 9 of Deuteronomy chapter 6. Verse 5 contains this staggering, all-encompassing command: "You shall love Yahweh your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all of your physical energy and resources," are meant to be completely channeled into loving the Creator. It's an instruction that literally leaves no part of the human experience untouched.
Over the centuries, the daily recitation of the Shema actually expanded. In Rabbinic Judaism today, the core verses from Deuteronomy 6 are joined by additional scriptures from Deuteronomy chapter 11 and Numbers chapter 15. These passages further emphasize the blessings of obedience, the consequences of turning away, and the physical reminders, like the fringes on garments, that were designed to help the people remember all the commandments of Yahweh. So, the Shema became a highly structured, multi-layered daily commitment to living a holy life.
Now, at this point, if you don't come from a Jewish background, you might be asking yourself a really natural question. So, what does this ancient Jewish practice actually have to do with me? Why should a modern follower of Jesus care so deeply about a prayer found in Deuteronomy? It's a totally fair question. But as we transition into the New Testament, you're going to see that this isn't just ancient history. It's the very heartbeat of what Jesus himself taught.
The crucial point is right here in the Gospel of Mark. When a scribe actually approached Jesus and asked him which commandment was the most important of all, Jesus didn't give a brand new teaching. Nope, he reached right back to Deuteronomy. He quoted the Shema, saying, "The first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul." Jesus explicitly and directly established the Shema as the absolute, undeniable foundation for anyone who claims to follow him.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we see in Matthew chapter 22 as well. After telling the questioner to love God with all their heart, soul, and mind, and then adding the second commandment to love your neighbor as yourself, Jesus makes a completely breathtaking statement. He says, "On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." Think about that. Everything. The entire Old Testament, all the teachings, all the instructions, all the prophetic warnings, they are all suspended directly from this single central peg of the Shema.
To really grasp Jesus' logic here, take a look at how the original 10 Commandments break down into two distinct areas. It perfectly mirrors his statement. The first 4 commandments, having no other gods, no idols, respecting his name, keeping the Sabbath, they are entirely focused on how we serve and worship Yahweh. That's loving God. The last 6 commandments, honoring parents, not murdering, not stealing, not lying, they are entirely focused on how we relate to our fellow human beings. That's loving your neighbor. The entire framework of biblical morality is literally just a detailed explanation of the Shema in action.
Which brings us to a fascinating and maybe slightly challenging contrast for modern believers. On one side, we have John 3:16, undeniably beautiful, incredibly important, and easily quoted by almost every Christian in the world. But on the other side, we have the Shema in Deuteronomy 6:4-5, the exact passage that Jesus himself stated was the greatest commandment of all. Yet so many believers today cannot quote it, much less understand its deep, penetrating requirement for active, obedient love. If we truly consider ourselves followers of Jesus, shouldn't the commandment he called the greatest be the one we actually prioritize the most?
This is exactly why there is a growing call for all followers of Yeshua, of Jesus, to memorize the Shema. It is the watchword of the faith. I highly encourage you to learn this original Hebrew phrasing, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. By internalizing this, by waking up and going to sleep with this active command on your lips, you are connecting yourself to the very words that anchor the faith of Jesus and the prophets before him.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. How does understanding these ancient roots change your perspective on your modern faith? When you realize that believing in God means actively hearing and obeying, when you truly Shema, how does that change what you do tomorrow morning? I really encourage you to dive deeper into this topic. You can read the fantastic original article this explainer was based on by clicking the link provided down in the description below. If this journey helped you understand the scriptures in a new light, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more structured, focused explainers just like this one. Until next time, keep actively listening and keep actively learning.